In this video, I'm going to share with you how to use Python socket to send information from MT5 and perhaps place a trade if you choose to, and using that trade information, send it across to another MT5 platform for either your own larger personal account for risk management purposes and filtering trades, or even for funded trading accounts. The reason I do this is because I like to trade with a master account with low funds to reduce the concept of money, and then that way I can focus only on what the market is offering rather than hoping for the big dollars coming in. This trades to another account on a different computer in the same network, depending on the IP used. What I needed was a trade copier that could copy between my own accounts fast across multiple computers, filter trades by time and day as well as direction, and also use adjusted risk and trade management policies. And the reason for that is my personal accounts have a different risk protocol to that of funded trading accounts and evaluations. Now, there is a tool out there called Social Trading Tools, and there's some other EA-based trade copiers. The reason for not using social trading tools is that they don't have the ability to filter things like time, day of week, and that kind of thing. Also, this doesn't actually cost anything, so it's a lot cheaper. There are expert advisors out there. However, the issue with those is they run through the platform, and often, if they're over the internet, they can be a little bit slow. And if they're on the same computer, they can actually start to chew up some of the power of the computer if you have multiple platforms running all on the same computer. By doing this, I free up my trading computer, and then that allows me to trade and focus with a fast computer, knowing that my trades will be sent across my network very quickly and efficiently. And then that way I can run the trading platforms on another computer that's not taking up as much energy. So let's now take a look at the code. So I'm going to start with the MQL5 code. And basically don't include this in your code if you're going to type this out. You've got the general information up the top, and then you go down to, you've got an integer, which basically is the socket handle. You're calling in some math libraries as well as the trade library. And I like to use ctrade as a library because it makes it easier to actually place trades. Scrolling down, now, a quick note, as you might know, I do focus on the DAX, which is the German 40, in some cases the German 30, depending on what market. So this program is specifically designed to only trade the DAX. Now I'm going to run you through the thought processes and the code to explain it a little better, just remembering this is MQL5. So basically we're defining the variable, we're setting it up the top, so it's a double. And I'm just setting up the bid price. So bid GER for German market equals 0.00. And basically I'm just setting up the variable to work later on. I also call the ask price. So I've called that ask GER. Now the double is the type of information that I'm getting. So it's a 0.00. If it was an int or integer, it would just be 0 without the decimal points. Now with MQL5, you've also got to put the semicolon there, and same for the ask. So this bid GR is a word that I've basically made up so that I know that it refers to the bid of the German market. We've got the double balance. So double is the type of information that we're looking for, and then the next word over to call a variable is basically just a word that I've made up to determine what I'm looking for. So here it's the balance, then we've got equity, calling an integer here as GER stop, and that's the stop loss I want to use in my trades, which is 40 points, or basically later on we'll show that it's price, so whatever the price is now, for a buy order will take away 40 points to get the stop loss figure. The input int for GER target is 30. So an input is something that when I call this script, it's something that I can actually change in the code before I run it. And I'll show you how to do that later. But input int, which is integer, and then I've called it a name that I know means the target for the German market. So I can change this before I enter the trade to the desired target price. So in a buy condition, it will be the price of the market plus the target. And we're just pulling the symbol name, so GER40, which is representing the German 40 market, and I've just called it GER40 for simplicity. And it just makes it easier to type in later on. Now we go to void on start the brackets, and basically we're getting into the actual program now. We've got the curly bracket, my socket handle equals socket connect. So basically calling that will call the connect function. So we're about to connect a socket, which a socket is basically just sending information from one point to another. And you'll see how that works later on. From the variable up top, bid GER, which is 0.00, we're now giving that some information as to what that means. So we go normalize double to make sure that the amount of digits that it's pulling is correct, then symbol info double, and then we're calling the German 40 market. Notice how it's not a string because we've applied it as a string variable up further. So normally that would be a string, and it is a string, but we just don't see it down here. And then comma, symbol bid, because we're looking for the bid price of the German market. And then close that off, put a comma in, and then underscore digits, which will call the amount of digits the German market has, which I think it goes to 2 decimal places, but each broker will be different, and that's why we call this digits function. It also helps to ensure that if the broker changes how they post information, that your code will hopefully still work later on without you having to manually adjust everything anytime something changes. So basically we get a normalized bid price for the German market. We do the same concept for the ask price. The only thing we change here is symbol underscore ask. Symbol underscore bid is part of the MQL5 library. Same with the symbol info double, and also the digits and normalized double as well. So the only word that we have made up is the bid GER, and I guess the GER40, but we know that's a string variable up top. And here that's a made up word, whereas the rest of this is basically, except for the German 40, is basically part of the words of the library of the MQL5 requirements. So if we were, for example, to change this to normalized triple, it's not going to work. Whereas we could effectively change the ask GER to whatever we like, and it will work as long as we change all the right places. Next we go down, we've got a string. We're calling a string variable. We're calling it message. So this is a word that I've randomly made up, and that's going to equal, we've got the little quotation marks across all of these sections. Now it's a bit convoluted, I'm not going to go through it in too much detail, but here's the format that it offers here. We've got mt.trade action deal, and then we've got to concatenate, so basically combine all of these string information, and it pulls together all of the information that we need to then send it across to Python and place an order using the request order send function. We've got the deal, the symbol, this is the volume, this is the trade type. Now I've got a script for buy and then also a script for sell on my MT5 platform. And when I open the market and I'm ready to trade, what I do is I grab the script from the navigator, either buy or sell depending on the order that I'm ready to make, and I drag it across into the chart of the German market, and I run the script, and then that places the trade in line with my expectations based on the market. For example, the market opens, I drag across the script and let it go into the chart and runs it, and then I'll have a script for either buy or sell, which makes all of this information in here a little bit different. So rather than 0, that will be the number for a sell if it was the sell script. Double to string, we've got the ask price. I believe that's the information to enter the trade. So whatever the price is now, because it's a buy, we want to use the ask price. And I've called it a double to string because what we're doing is creating a string to send across to Python where we're going to actually create a list and then run that into the trade information later on. Double to string the bid price less the stop that we want to place. So whatever the bid price is, we're taking off 40 points, which we referred to up higher. So it's say 15,000, take 40 points, so it'll be 14,960. Double to string bid German market bid price plus the target, which we've called 30 points. And we can change that because it's an input integer. And we simply input a different number if we choose to, but it is preset to 30. Basically, if that's 15,000 as the entry or the bid price plus 30 points, it'll be 15,030 as the set target. We've just got a comment here, so that can be any words you like to basically help you identify what a trade is, or for whatever reason you want to have a comment in there. Just taking note of the comma placement in the quotation marks and the plus signs because it does get a little bit tricky, so make sure you're careful with how that comes through. So mt.order filling IOC is how the orders are filled. Your broker might be a little bit different, and depending on the order type you're looking to send, that could be different as well. So when you're in your MQL5, you can type order underscore filling underscore IOC, and it should come up in a red color, and you can just put your mouse in there and then hit F1 to bring up the help library so that you can actually search what you need on a deeper level. For example, you could also on symbol info double, you could click in there and then press F1 on your keyboard if you're using a Windows, and that will bring up the help function. And then you can look into what's required. So what goes here, it should say something like the symbol as a string, and then it'll give you some options here such as like bid, ask, that kind of thing, and what type of variable it is. Now we get down into the socket information. So that's the string. So when you run the script, it will create all of this information and send it off straight over to your Python socket, and your Python code will be reading it and just waiting for a message to come through before it goes and places the order. Now we head down to socket underscore send. Basically that uses the socket and sends the message. So we've called a string variable, so it's sending a string, and that's all there is to it. When you run the code or the script, it'll fire this off. Now I have commented the order out, and to uncomment it, you simply remove the asterisk and the slash from here and here. So I'll just highlight those quickly so you know what the comment is. And the reason I've done that is because if anybody copies and pastes this, it probably won't work because there's some requirements that you have to pre-fill before it'll actually work. But I just don't want people to send a trade by accident. So I've commented it out. And if you do want to adjust your required trade settings, this is the area where you do it. So we've got curly brackets inside the main function. We've got trade.by with a capital B. I'll scroll up. This is part of the C trade, and I've called it just trade. So C trade is a way to easily place orders in MQL5, and then I just call the trade parameter to then goes trade dot either buy or sell. Could be even sell limit, buy limit, that kind of thing as well. And then we go in and pre-fill the information that we're looking for. So it goes volume, which I've got set to 0.10. And this trades on my master account at low money so that I can focus on the market itself rather than the dollar figure. Now, the lower the dollar figure that I'm seeing on the screen, the less emotional and physiological response that I have to the market, so that I can focus purely on what the charts are telling me, what the volume footprint is saying, and that kind of thing. While in the background on another computer, the money is actually playing out at a larger scale. And that helps to basically separate my mentality from financial versus the market itself. So we've got volume, we've got the string, which we've called up above, which has the quotation marks either side, but because we've called it a string up higher, just highlight that again. So this is what it's calling, is GER40 in the quotation marks. Then we've got the price to enter at, so we want to get in at the ask price right now, which we've called up here. We've got the stop loss, which, because it's a buy, and this is why I separate buy and sell, because these figures will be different. So we've got the bid, which we've called up here, less the stop, which is GR stop, which is 40. It's just an integer. You may actually get a int to double error on that, but it still should work. You've got the bid price plus the target, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's the 30 points as an input. We can change it before we run the script without having to code later on. So we've got the target, and we've got a comment here, GER40 buy order placed by script. Now we'll see that in the MT5 terminal if the order places, and we'll go through the MT5 stuff later on. We close the bracket off and then close this part of the code. When we run this script, it starts, it runs through each of these elements. It'll send a string based on the information that's picked up. It'll send to the socket, and Python will be able to read the message. And then if you remove these comments and obviously alter the symbol and whatever you're trading to match what you're doing, it will also place a trade on that platform as well. I find this a really good way to quickly enter a trade, add the stops and targets as per your risk management protocol, because if you don't use a script and you just hit buy or sell using one-click trading, you then have to drag and drop the stop loss and take profit, and sometimes the market can move so quick that you don't get a chance to properly do it. So that's why I use a script for my trading. Now we go into the next part, which is the connect the socket area. And basically that's an integer. It's calling to connect the socket. So it creates a socket, and then it checks if it's invalid or not. It then tries to connect, it checks the connection. So you set up your IP, which I'll provide links to show you how to find your IP. And then you find your port, which I'll provide another video, because I actually had a lot of trouble finding a port that would actually work. A lot of the videos out there didn't show me how to find a port. It just said use this number. I used the numbers, various different numbers, and they just didn't work. So what I had to do was basically write a port finder in Python. That's another video. It is quick and easy, but it's a different video. And then that allowed me to find the port, and it was something like 50,872. For me to actually cycle through every port and try by trial and error, it would have taken forever, and I probably would have given up. So you do need to, if you're having trouble finding the port to use this other video, which I'll link to in the description once I create it, so that you can then find the port that you're after to use for your socket. So it checks to make sure that it's got the right IP in the port, and then it will print connected to socket server. So once this has run and it's connected, basically it's connected, so it will be able to send the message across to the Python script if it's running. Well, basically this section connects to the server. What happens next is if it doesn't work, it will print failed connection, here's the error. So it'll actually give you an error, and then it'll give you a number generally. So it'll be like 5040 or something like that. And you can then go and search the internet for, say, MQL5 error, and then put in the number. And you can find that in the journal tab down the bottom of your MetaTrader platform. Or it might actually show up in the experts tab, sorry. So it'll either connect or not. And then further down, if the socket does not equal a wrong handle, then it will return h_socket. But if it is the invalid handle, it will then also create an error code. So it's checking the handle. And then finally, we're going to close the socket. So void socket close. We've got the integer here, which is the handle of the socket. We go through, we check the handle, and then we close the socket. So socket close is the function. What socket are we closing? It's the socket_handle. And then we go my socket handle equals invalid handle, print socket closed. So once you run this script, it will run through and close the socket. Now here we're talking about the send function. So it's an integer function, socket send. Now we've got the handle. So what socket are we talking about? And then the data. So it's a string. So we need some string data to send it, which is in the message that we've created up here. So string message. And then that's when we call socket send. What socket are we using? And what is the string information that we're sending? As an example, we could put in GER40 because it is a string variable into this message. Or we could even type in something like string info, whatever we want to type, and then that will work. But we just want to send the message, and then that links into the Python code later on to place trades. So going back down here, we check the handle of the socket, we set the amount of bytes, and then we're using byte size string to character array. And basically this chooses the amount of bytes that we're needing to allow based on the string that we're sending. And then we're going to print run something, or, socket is running, something like that. I've just put it as running something just so I know that it has reached this point in the argument in the program. And then it will return socket send, socket handle. So we're sending based on this socket, such as IP and port that we're using, the bytes and the byte size, which we've called up here. And then that's it. That's all there is to it. Now, a quick run through. Basically what it does is creates a message and sends it to the socket and places a trade if you choose to. I should also have in here socket close. I'll just add that in manually now. And I'll just check the other. So socket close is literally just the handle, which I've grabbed from up here, which is my socket handle. Now running that will then close the socket, and then we would have to then reopen the socket later on to actually place another trade and send information through the server. So we've got the Python side code now. I've got the comment there so you don't have to delete it if you don't want to. Now we're importing socket, importing MetaTrader 5 as MT, importing requests, typing, final, typing list, datetime, import datetime, and import time as T. So basically we're importing a whole heap of libraries to do what we want to do. If you need to understand more about pip install, there are videos on YouTube that will hopefully be quite helpful for you. And generally you run that through the command function. So we've got a class here, socket server, and basically we want to use the IP address. Now this has to match the MQL5
IP address that you're using, and then port equals find the port. So type in your own port here. I should have written your port. So we've got a class here, socket server, and we're defining the class. You've got to put your IP address in, and it's got to match the MQL5 side, the script that you've put in terms of the IP address. And then you've also got to put in your port. So you're replacing your port with the port number that is the same as the MQL5 side. We're calling the socket, so socket.socket af_inet, and then comma socket sock stream. So basically that's going to bring the stream through, and we're going to be able to listen to the socket. So we've got the address, which is the IP address, the port, which is the port that you've set. We're going to go self sock bind, and then it's going to put the address and the port in here. And then we've got cumulative data, wait for the connection. We're going to then start listening every 1 second. So we've got the ability to accept, and then once it's in, it will print connected to the socket. And then we need to obviously receive a message. So once we've connected, we want to receive a message. While it's true, or while we're looking and waiting to receive a message, we've got the encoded information here, which is UTF-8. And basically the information that we're receiving is in this format, and it decodes it so that we can read it in Python. If it's not there, it will break, and then it will close the Python program. So as that's running, we'll return the data, and then towards the end, it will close the socket. So we'll print socket close, and then it will close. So then further down into the function, we've got socket server, IP address, and port. So make sure you copy the information back down. Now obviously you could call the functions up here if you wanted to, so address or port. I did type it in myself though, and then I can visibly see that they're matching, but it's just however you want to do it. And then basically it just waits for the connection. If there is a connection, we're waiting to receive a message, and then once we have received the message, we'll see print receive data, and then the message, which is the information that we're sending from MQL5 script. So then I've made a list. So I've called it list maker, string, which is the message. So we turn this data here into a string, and then I have created a list. So trade index list equals list maker dot split, and I've separated it by commas because I have set up the message to have commas in between each element that we're going to use in the trade information later. So basically that creates a list. The trade index list is what we can call later, but we'll get into that shortly. We also need to log into the MT5 platform. I've got login, and then you would change this to your ID, which you can generally get from your broker's live account email that they send you, or from the platform itself if you're already logged in. You can generally see it either in your navigator or even up the top of the MetaTrader platform over to the left-hand side up the top. So you need the quotation marks, but you put in the number, you put in your password, so whatever your password is to be trading that account, and the server of your broker. Now all of this information, you should either have it if you're already trading, or it could be in the email that they've sent you, providing you with information. You could also check the broker's online portal when you log in. They should have that information there for you as well. Or perhaps you could even reset your password if you have forgotten it. Now the path, basically we want to find the MetaTrader 5 platform that you want to use. If you have multiple, obviously you can change this, but you can only run one MT5 service through the Python code. It won't connect to two at one time, as far as I'm aware. So you copy and paste the file path, making sure there's backslashes rather than the slash that you're provided. And obviously the broker, this will be your own broker. The whole file path will be different for you. The file that you're looking for is terminal64.exe, and it will probably have something to do with your broker as the file path. Timeout, that's just the time to stop looking if you haven't connected by a certain time. And portable, I have it set to false because I'm not using a portable MT5 platform. Now we check the initialization of the MT MetaTrader. So up here, we've got MT dot, and that basically refers up to MetaTrader 5, the pip, as MT. So whenever we call MT and then a dot, we know it's referring to this import. So just scrolling back down. So if it hasn't initialized based on the path that we've set, which is the file path, then it will print an error, and it will be mt.lastError. Now that will tell us why it hasn't initialized. If it does initialize, you won't get an error here. Now we check the login. So we have mt.login, login server password, and if not, is basically we only continue on if it doesn't work. But if it does work, so it's running the function of login using the login server and password that we've already used earlier, then it will call the error. So mt.lastError, the brackets, and that will tell us what went wrong, and it will close the Python script at that point. Then we run the account info. This one is good just to make sure that we are connected and we can receive information. So it's account_info, and then mt.accountinfo with the brackets, and then we just print the account info. I also print the trade index up here as well, and that tells me the first point. Because it's 0, it will tell me the first element that we come across in the index just to check that it is working again. And then we get down into creating the order. DEF, or define a function. So it's create_order. And then we're calling the trade index list from our previous information, trade index list, which is basically the message split up into a list by the commas, and we're calling that into this function so that we can use it within this information here. We have the colon there, and then it runs down into request equals a curly bracket. We've got these parameters here which need to be outlined, so it's in quotations. We've got action and then the colon there, and then we've got the information that we want to apply to each section. So action, it's the trade action deal. So basically we're telling MetaTrader MT dot that we want to place a deal. And then symbol, trade index underscore list. It's the second element. So we've got the number 1 there, which is the second element, because the list always starts at 0 and is read from 0 and then goes to 1, 2, 3 and so on. So that will pull GER40 based on the MQL5 code, the script. The volume, we want to set that to a float, and I've just manually put it in. We can change that to trade index lists based on the index which it is. However, I have just put that as 0.10, and I can change the volume to different information if I want to trade different volume on the next trading platform. So for example, I could just change this to 10.0 if I wanted to trade 10 lots on my other trading account that we'd connect to later on. For price, I've gone mt.symbol_info_tick and manually put in the symbol, which we could potentially write in trade index list 1 and replace this, and then .ask. Now the reason I've set it up that way, I'm only using this for the German 40. If you're trading multiple things, you would have to adjust your code accordingly, but this will pull the ask price because it's a buy order. Now the type, it's an integer type, and we're pulling the type of order, which is, I believe it's 0 because it's a buy order, and that will reflect based on what you've put in on your script. Stop loss, that will pull the stop loss number as a float that we want to call. Same for the take profit, so we're just calling the take profit information, which was the bid plus the target price, which was 30 pips as an input. And basically we're calling whatever that number is into the take profit. Deviation, it does have to be an integer. It can't be a float as far as I'm aware. And that actually caused an issue for me to not be able to place the trade. So making sure that's not 10.0, it's just a flat 10, or for example, you might have it a bit tighter at 2 or even 100. So deviation is just how far away the trade will still place compared to the price that you've requested if it's a market order. You've got the magic here, which is the magic number. I've just put 5555, so it's an integer. You can put any number you like just to make sure that you are looking at a certain strategy, or you want to filter by magic number at some point later on. And it basically just defines the strategy that you're using or the trades that you're using or how it's been placed. Because if you trade without a magic number and then you trade using this script, you'll know that anything with the 5555 is placed by the Python code. You can also set a comment, which is pulled from the trade index. Type time, so it's mt.orderTime good until cancelled. Because it's a market order, basically that is from the MetaTrader library, so that's what I've used. And then type filling order _ filling _ IOC. That works for my market orders. However, it is important to just test everything and check it and make sure it is all in line with your broker and how you're looking to trade. So for example, if you're using limit orders rather than market orders, you might have to make a few changes to make it work. For example, the price would have to be a fixed price, not just the ask price at the market right now, because the broker probably won't let you place that trade as a limit order if it's too close to the current market price. Now I've got make it happen, so we've closed off this request. So we've got action, symbol, volume, price, type, stop loss, take profit, deviation, magic and comment, and type time and type filling. And that makes up all of the elements that we're going to then use to place the order into the MT5 that we're logging into. So make it happen equals mt.orderSend. We call the request, which is all of this information here as per that word. So we call the request, and then we printing request value and then requests. So that will print out what we're actually requesting, and we'll see it all separated. So we'll see action will be trade action deal, or it'll probably be a number relating to that function. We'll see the string for GER40. We'll see the volume that we want to use as a float, and so on. So once we've written that all out, we then want to obviously create the order. So this is all outlining what this function is, and then we actually have to call the function to actually run it in the script. So this is on its own little section, create _ order, and then we're calling the trade index list to then go and place the order in the MetaTrader platform. I'm now going to show you how it actually plays out in the real market. So we're going to place a buy order using the script, using the socket script. So what I'm going to do is drag and drop this onto the chart. I'm going to run the socket copier in the terminal. So we're going to run that. We can see that it's running and it's just listening for information and waiting for something to happen. And now I go over to socket, which is a script. I drag it and drop it, and it places the order. Now, I've got the order area commented out on this, so it's actually placing it from the Python socket information using the MT5 library. So you can adapt this. I've got it set to only trade once. You can adapt it to stay open as the socket and keep listening for more information, but it depends on your needs and what you're actually looking to do with it. But hopefully this gives you a good idea of how sockets work, how MQL5 works, and how Python works, and all interacts together to create an application that you can use in your trading. Thanks so much for listening. Like and subscribe if you liked this video, and hopefully you found it helpful. Your support does mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate the comments and the likes. Hope you have a great day.